Welcome to Comic Movie 10, where you get insight into everything comic book movies and television related in 10 minutes or less. I'm Joe Kane.
And I'm Dan Kane. No relation. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and share and keep up with us at hecklerkane.com.
On today's Comic Movie 10, we're going to be talking about the history of Aquaman.
Yeah, the Aquaman movie starring Jason Momoa is coming out soon.
Yep.
And, we just figured we could run down through the history of somebody who's maybe not at the forefront of the Justice League necessarily, and lesser known than some of the bigger names.
He's caught a lot of flack throughout the years, and basically we really didn't see a proper Aquaman until being a superhero until the Justice League movie. Or,
Yeah.
So we're going to just kind of go down and start out with where he came from. He was Arthur Curry.
Yes, his name is Arthur Curry.
He was the King of Atlantis back in the day.
Yeah.
Which he still is in the comic lore.
Yeah.
It was created by Paul Norris and Mort Weisinger.
Yes.
And it was in 1941, in November of 1941. He was in a comic. He appeared first in a comic called More Fun Comics.
But he was made out, he wore the orange and the green.
Orange and the green.
They knew him for You Could Talk to the Fish.
Yeah, talk to the fish. You went full on gangster there.
Talk to the fish. He was a guy that, he talked to the fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nothing spectacular about him. Like everybody, your favorite was either Batman or Superman or Flash, or nobody's favorite was Aquaman.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, if you did, you had issues.
Yeah.
Which is okay, because now it's a lot cooler.
Yeah.
In the 60s, we had the Superfriends series that came out, and we used to watch it in reruns.
Yeah.
But he was this sort of dorky sort of like guy that would just talk to fish and bring fish in.
Right.
And you felt like some of the stories, it was shoehorned in that we had to figure out how to make him fit with everyone else, because he's not fitting with everyone else. Right.
And then he wound up becoming one of the founding members of the Justice League.
Yeah, that was written into the comics. That was written into the comics actually pretty early, in probably the 50s, the 60s, or late 50s, early 60s. It was written into the comics that he was one of the founding members of the Justice League.
Right. And then through the early 2000s, he had appeared in Justice League Unlimited, and a bunch of other animated DC movies.
Yeah.
But always kind of up until about 2011 maintained this role of like the weirdo.
Yeah.
The joke. I don't know if you watch Big Bang Theory, but there was an episode where they all dress up as the Justice League, and nobody wanted to be Aquaman.
Yes.
But going forward, 2011 rolls around.
The New 52 comes out.
Yes, and they kind of relaunch him as a much more serious character.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that happened with him. He was wearing more armor as opposed to just a orange shirt. He was a lot cooler of a character.
Right.
He had powers that were beyond just talking to fish. He was very super strong. He was very durable. Because of his conditions in the water all the time, his skin was very tough. So he was a formidable foe.
Yes.
And that was something that the New 52 had launched in 2011, and he became a character that you could go, okay, I can relate to this guy as a superhero.
Right. Well, still keeping his roots. He could still telepathically communicate with marine life.
Yes, but there was a lot of stories also that were put out there with not just marine life, but anything around the sea, meaning he was communicating with seagulls, and he was able to. It gave him a little more options out there. Besides the storylines that were actually set in Atlantis, it gave him options to come out of the water and still have these communications with telepathy, I think they're calling it.
Yeah.
That with other animals that were capable of helping him out of situations.
Right. And as we were talking about before, they had an appearance on Smallville.
Yes. This is the first time that we saw any sort of live action Aquaman.
Right.
He was portrayed by, I'm going to forget his name, Alan Ritchson. Alan Ritchson. Yes. Alan Ritchson's recently been polling out there trying to get a part in Shazam, by the way. So, Alan, we hope we get something. But he was the first time that anybody had played him in a live action scenario.
Right. Right.
And this gets us into also Smallville, talking about that. He was basically a like an Olympic diver. It was a little bit of a skewed background for him.
Right.
He had these powers to swim through the water really fast, but they never addressed that he was talking to fish.
Right.
Which was kind of interesting. So,
Yeah.
and he was wearing a yellow. Why I keep saying yellow? He was wearing an orange hoodie.
Right.
Which seemed to be the MO of all of the Smallville characters at the time. That
Right.
like, we're going to make this really cool. Everybody's going to wear hoodies. Right. So the Flash had a hoodie, and they were built up the entire Justice League, and everybody was wearing hoodies.
Right.
So I guess it was time period. They said this is cool for superheroes.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Smallville, the creator of Smallville had actually created a pilot for an Aquaman show.
Yeah, starring Justin Hartley, who was in Smallville as the Green Arrow. Yes, yes, he was.
Okay.
He was in as Green Arrow, as Oliver Queen, in Smallville for many seasons. He was actually probably the most prominent of the Justice League that was joining Clark Kent at that point. And he got his own series, but the pilot never aired, unfortunately.
Right.
There are clips out there if you dig deep enough. If we could find a link, maybe we'll put it in the description, but most likely we can't even find it. It's out there. That pilot is somewhere along the lines of, the Smallville sort of era of superhero movies.
Right. And that leads us right up to present day.
Yeah.
Which is the best depiction that we've gotten of Aquaman.
Well, listen, nobody in their right mind is going to go up to Jason Momoa and say, your character is a dork. It's just not happening.
Well, no, it's not. It's totally reinvented.
Yeah.
And for whatever you thought about the Justice League movie, I say it all the time, to me, him and Gal Gadot were the two highlights as far as the character they play, the role they play.
Absolutely.
And it was the first time that I looked at Aquaman and went, all right, he can be kind of cool.
Yeah, you know what? I've seen in the past 2 years Halloween costumes on kids. And there's a couple of kids out there I've seen already that have Aquaman Halloween costumes. And, donning a big beard and long hair.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty cool now that, I don't think I had ever seen one of the orange shirt Superfriends Aquaman costumes, because nobody ever wanted that for Halloween.
No, it just wasn't a thing.
Yeah. Now he's made this character a superhero. He's made him someone cool that we can look up to.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to seeing this. It's being released on December 14th this year, and we are really looking forward to that. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this new Aquaman movie? And
is anyone a fan of the orange and green Aquaman?
Yeah. We'll see you next time on Comic Movie 10.
We love bringing you these episodes, and we need your help to keep them coming.
Please don't forget to share and subscribe, and keep up with us at hecklerkane.com.